Hey guys, take a measure with the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to compare the new iPhone 14 Pro with the iPhone 12 Pro that was released 2 years ago. And in this video, we're going to talk about the hardware, the software, the camera, the battery life, and finally the answer the question, is it worth upgrading from the iPhone 12 Pro to the iPhone 14 Pro? So let's dive right into it. As you know, the iPhone 14 Pro here on my left hand side was just released about a month ago, and the iPhone 12 Pro again was released 2 years ago, which is kind of hard to believe. But this phone, again, both of the phones are phenomenal devices. Just looking from it physically here. Now, if we look at it and hold it in our hand, you'll notice one big thing is the 14 Pro got heavier. So you're looking at 206 gram versus 189 gram. And that's because if we turn to the back here and take a look at it, it's these camera sizes have gone increasingly bigger with every new update since these cameras have been released. So you got these three 12 megapixel camera, and then on the 14 Pro there has been an upgrade in the camera. The main camera is now about 48 megapixel versus the other two cameras, which are still 12 megapixel camera. But as you can see here, just looking at these cameras, huge camera differences. The other thing, of course, on the phone is going to be the color choices. As you'll notice here, if we turn to the back here, on the 14 Pro introduces a new color known as deep purple in my hand here, which we did unboxing for video for you guys. Actually, both of the phones we did unboxing in the past, so make sure you guys check those out if you guys want to take a look at it. Of course, here this is the gold iconic color, which you can also get the 14 Pro in. So you do get your base color gold, silver, and of course the space gray, or for the 14 Pro now they call it space black. And then on the 12 Pro is the specific blue color. So the color differences is purple and Pacific blue, which we don't have here, or the premium or the new colors introduced to their lineup. Now, the other thing we want to mention is the price point of these two phones. So the iPhone 14 Pro, again, starts at $999 for the 128 gig, going all the way up to 1 terabyte. And the iPhone 12 Pro, now you can't buy it directly from Apple because Apple no longer sells it. But if you were to buy it from other places, you get it $300-400 cheaper than paying that $1,000, which will leave some link in the description section if you guys want to check out. Amazon and eBay are usually good places to buy these phones because you can get it from other places or in store as well. So that's kind of the rundown between the prices of these two phones. One thing we do want to mention is in terms of price, we mentioned that the 14 Pro does come in 1 terabyte. Unfortunately, the 12 Pro only goes up to 512 gigs. So if you need up to 1 terabyte, which is a lot of storage, you're going to be looking at the 14 Pro. Now, let's move on to the front in terms of a display. When we hold it side by side, you'll notice here, of course, without going into the minor details all the way, you'll notice the both of the phones sort of, again, same size. That's because both of them does have 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR display. The one thing you'll notice here is the notch up here. You got the 14 Pro with that dynamic island, no longer a notch anymore. And then on the 12 Pro is the actual notch, which is, again, if you see here, takes up a lot of space, but that's kind of the main differences. The other differences between these two phones is on the 14 Pro, you have the Pro Motion, which allows for that 120 hertz refresh rate. And on the 12 Pro, unfortunately, you're still capped at 60 hertz. So 60 hertz versus 120 hertz. And lastly, the other big update on the 14 Pro that finally made it up is this always on display, which again seems to be a feature that everyone's been kind of asking for, and now you have that feature on the 14 Pro. You do not get that feature on the 12 Pro. So that's going to be the main thing to look for between these two phones. And now the other thing to mention about these two phones, if you're looking at the hardware, is that on the 14 Pro there's some special sensors put in that allows the phone to detect when you're in a crash. And also along with that is the ability to call SOS, emergency SOS, via satellite, which is not going to be available on the 12 Pro. Satellite feature will not be available there. So that's going to be the other thing to note between these two phones if you're really looking for the thing that makes these phones the difference here. Now moving on to the next piece, which is going to be the camera here. As we mentioned here, between these two phones, again, both the phones can do most stuff in terms of photography. You can go ahead and choose all of those fancy filters that you can use it for. But one thing we do want to mention is on the 14 Pro here, if we go into video mode, you'll notice here there's a new icon available known as action mode, because Apple always goes ahead and updates their camera here. Now with action mode, basically, if you're going to be taking a video on the fly here, it should have more stabilization, which we'll go ahead and test out in the later video. You do not have that. The other thing, if you look closely here, is this option to zoom. Now you got this ability to kind of have these buttons down here, which can zoom up to 9, where here we're going to be capped or limited to zooming up to 6. So just like that, we can see that is a big difference for these phones as well. So of course, camera's been updated, and that's no surprise coming from Apple. Now let's talk about the battery life of these two phones. Again, a big feature of both of these phones is they have decent sized battery. So the iPhone 12 Pro here has around a 2815 mAh battery compared to the 14 Pro, which has 3200 mAh battery. So what does that mean in terms of the actual battery life? So what that means for these two phones is simply on the iPhone 14 Pro, you get 23 hours of video playback or battery life, and on the 12 Pro, you get about 17 hours. So 6-hour difference in terms of battery, a huge difference, and it is noticeable when you start to kind of play around and do stuff with between these two phones. You'll notice that right away that over time, the iPhone 14 Pro, it's considered all-day battery, which the iPhone 12 Pro, again, still a great battery, but just not as enough when it comes to just using it on a full single charge here. Both of the phones, again, have somewhat of a decent sized battery, we would say, compared to other smartphones on the market right now. Now, let's move on to the next thing, which is the software. So both of the phones, you can actually run iOS 16, and that's no surprise. Apple supports their iPhone flagship phone for a good 5 years or so. So the 14 Pro, you do not have a choice. It does come pre-installed with iOS 16. The 12 Pro, again, you can decide to stay on the earlier version, but you can update to iOS 16 right now and take advantage of some of the neat features of it. And when it comes to the software, both of the phones, again, when we do all of the basic apps that we've been testing out, things like social media, all of that is working fine. So without any doubt here, all of our main video streaming, music streaming, all of that and much more have been working as expected. There hasn't been any issues on the new version of iOS 16 on both of those devices here, which again, we mentioned it, and that shouldn't be an issue because these phones are only 2 years apart and we don't expect any different. Even when it comes to gaming, both phones are great for gaming. If you're doing heavy graphic gaming or light gaming, you'll find that both phone does pretty much a good job. Of course, the battery life is going to be different in terms of one versus the other, so you'll notice that right off the bat when it comes to gaming. Both of the phones, again, like you mentioned, software wise has been stable, and that's kind of where Apple comes in when it comes to their software updates. You do expect a level of support and that software stability, which we've seen so far between these two devices. So lastly, let's go ahead and talk about the big thing, which is it worth upgrading from the iPhone 12 Pro to the iPhone 14 Pro? Now, this is going to be a question that's going to be really depending on, are you looking to spend the extra couple $100 paying that premium $1,000 versus almost $600 for the 12 Pro, or around $650? So let's break it down. What are the biggest advantage or upgrades from the 12 Pro to the 14 Pro? Well, when we talk about the upgrades, so first thing we mention is the refresh rate. Of course, you get ProMotion and always on. So do you really care about always on? As we mentioned here, as you'll see here, the always on feature again is available here, and that update, you got the dynamic island. So again, display changes that happen with the new upgrade. You also get this bright peak is between these two phones is around 120% greater. So if you really look at the nit here, you get around 1800 compared to 800 nit on the 12 Pro. So a big increase in that. We also see again 20% longer battery life thanks to that upgrade in battery. We have 23 hours versus about 17 hours. We also see about 39% battery about performance, better performance when we do some benchmarking tests we did on Antutu, and we'll kind of see that between these two phones. That's because, of course, on the 14 Pro you get that the Bionic 16 versus a 14, of course, 2 chip ahead, which again, no surprise, there has been upgrade in technology, and with things that's moving along, that's going to be a given as well. Other things to note here, of course, you got the upgrade in battery in camera. So if you do really care about the camera, again, that's where the 14 Pro comes in. And lastly, there is, if you look at the minor detail between these two phones, one thing we'll mention is on the 14 Pro, there's a new type of memory known as LPDDR5, which is just basically a faster type of memory. So if you're doing a lot of multitasking and saving things around, you find that 14 Pro does a better job. So the one thing going for between these two phones, again, is that the 12 Pro is probably just about 17 grams lighter. So besides that, all the other things you're getting is that price point, again, budget friendlier phone compared to getting all those upgrades. So we'll let you guys decide what phone you guys would choose, or if you guys upgraded from one to another, leave your share your experience and leave it in the comment section. And while you're at it, make sure that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.